Next up is The Hop, that's Home Ownership Podcast with Village Properties Realtor, David Charles Allen. Don't miss out on the latest Santa Barbara real estate news.
Welcome to The Hop. This is David Charles Allen, Realtor at Village Properties in Santa Barbara, California, with my great friend and co-host, Patty Teal. I'm doing a wonderful day. Patty, how you doing?
I'm doing well too, David. Thanks for asking.
Good to hear. We got sunny skies here in Santa Barbara, 70 degrees scattered throughout, looking ahead. So it's going to be another beautiful week.
Well, that's beautiful weather. I love the 70s, not too cool and not too hot.
That's right. And then we have a little bit of a south swell coming in too. So you're having some fun. If you want to travel south, there's some waves to be had.
Oh, life is good.
Life's good. And then in terms of interest rates, we're at 6.375 for 30-year jumbo and 7% for 30-year conforming. So it looks like we're on the way up in terms of interest rates.
It's been in the sixes for a while, hasn't it? And now conforming is now 7%?
Correct.
Wow.
So that's always going to depend on your rate and who you go with. So sometimes it's going to be a little bit more than that as well. So
I see.
So in terms of how the statistics have performed too, we're at 38 new listings, 25 that closed, 14 price changes, and then 26 that went pending, 6 coming soon, and 6 back on the market. So a little bit more buildup of the supply again. 38, it's not a great number for new listings, but we're happy to have it.
And plus there's 26 pending. So like you said, it is a buildup of supply. So there's probably some new things to look at out there if you're in the market.
That's correct. There's always going to be some new stuff to look at. It just depends where you're at in your purchasing timeline and kind of take it where it goes.
Yeah, sounds good.
Any questions of the day for me?
One of our listeners sent a really interesting article, and it was about VA loans. It was from the Wall Street Journal, and it pretty much talked about, when I read the article, that the program has a stigma. A lot of agents believe that it takes longer to close and that buyers lack financial stability. But the point of the article was that's really not true. And I had always thought it was for smaller loans, but when I read the article, it said there was no cap on it. I know in the article, somebody had bought a $3.7 million purchase price, and basically they were telling the advantages of VA loans. So I wanted to get your take on them.
Yeah, I think they're really beneficial for someone that has the opportunity to use them. I think there's only a couple things that are VA loans I think you have to do that are extra. I think it's just everything needs to be like, if there's a pest report and there's pest work that needs to be done, it just has to be like remediated before the VA loan approves it. So there's just a couple things in terms of condition of the home that typically you can do after escrow and with a regular loan. But I believe in some instances for VA loans, they have to be done before they close or before they're signed off on.
Okay, that's really interesting. So do you find that slows things down?
It can slow things down, and it can be a little more complicated in terms of the transaction, because a lot of people don't want to do any of the work and they don't want to pay that cost up front. They just want to kind of pass it along and move on with their life.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's the only thing when people talk about VA loans is there's a little more stuff you have to do to get it passed through. But other than that, it functions similar to a real loan. The people are getting paid their money for their home, and it acts in the same manner as that. There's just a couple more little hoops to jump through while you're in the transaction. And sometimes that can be a deterrent for sellers.
Okay, well, thank you for explaining that. I mean, the article was definitely kind of an opinion piece saying all the positives about a VA loan, but what you're saying definitely makes sense. They just have to make sure that everything is in order so that the loan will go through.
Exactly. So it's a huge benefit to any buyers, because the benefits that do come from VA loans, if you qualify for it, it's always a reflection of a deal between a buyer and a seller. So sometimes it's not going to be as beneficial for a seller, or maybe a couple more things they have to worry about, but then it's going to be more beneficial for a buyer. So maybe they're inclined to pay a little bit more, and then that offsets what the seller has to go through. So it's always going to be a trade-off one way or another.
Yeah. And I also learned that, as you said, for the buyer, there's tremendous benefits. They don't even require a down payment, even on the more expensive properties.
Yeah, it's great if you're qualified for that. It's definitely something to look into.
Yeah. Well, David, if people are in the market for a property or to sell their property, how would they get a hold of you?
Yeah, my number is 805-617-9311, and my email is david@davidcharlesallen.com.
That's great, David. And last week we introduced your new business called Chowdees. That's CHOWDEES. And some people may have missed that episode. Can you just kind of give an overview of what Chowdy's is?
Yeah, we're at Santa Barbara Chowdy's. What we are doing is starting an organic dog treat brand that is basically brings it back to the basics, where single ingredient, no preservatives, everything you can understand. And what we're trying to do is maintain all the nutrients in the food that we're giving our dogs. And so our main product right now is organic, raw, freeze-dried, grass-fed beef liver. So beef liver is probably one of the most nutrient-dense foods you can give your pets and even for humans as well. And by freeze-drying it raw, we're maintaining almost 97% of the nutrients as it would be if it was given without being cooked or anything like that. In addition to it maintaining the nutrients, it also preserves it. It has a good shelf life on it, so you don't have to worry about it going bad in your fridge or anything like that. And it's really great for on-the-go access for training and just at any point in time during the day, really spoiling your dog, so to say, with healthy treats that you know are going to be good for them, that gives them the nutrients they sometimes can be lacking from a normal diet.
Wow. And my dog absolutely loves the taste. And you were saying it's pretty much unanimous that all dogs love the taste. Do all your dogs seem to love Chowdy's equally?
They all are obsessed with them, that's for sure. I mean, Bailey's probably the pickiest eater, and she's one of the ones that's most obsessed with them. So we were a little bit worried because Mango doesn't like them. So we were a little bit worried about cats not liking them and whatnot. But we've given it to a couple cat owners, and one came back to us and said once he ran out, his cat started going crazy and biting his legs and stuff.
Oh, that's very funny. That's very funny. Excuse my dogs for barking in the background on cue.
Yeah. So he ran out of treats and ended up getting attacked by his cat because he wanted more. So it was kind of funny.
That's a funny story. I actually didn't know it was for both dogs and cats. So it's good for both.
Yes. So both animals, naturally, they eat raw in terms of if they were not be in our possession, so to say. That's a big part of a raw diet is the organs. And that's where most of the nutrients are in the organs. So you don't want to give them too much, especially if they're new to a raw diet. But yeah, that limited kind of treat style is perfect for organs.
Oh, wonderful. And what benefits are you likely to see with your dog? I mean, more energy, better digestion. What would it be?
I think it's a wide range. It's a lot of benefits that you may not see or may not be able to notice. I think the most important is feeding your dog food that will give them an overall better quality of life in their lifespan. So if you're continuing to feed an animal processed foods or grains or something that's not generally needed in their diet, you could see a buildup of that continuously over their lifespan. One time this thought came to me, and this is a total assumption, but I always wondered why bigger dogs have shorter lifespans than smaller dogs. And one day I just kind of thought, well, the bigger dogs consume more food each day. And if they're consuming more food that's not good for them each day, over time, that's going to shorten their lifespan because they've consumed all this processed food that may not be good for them in the long run. And the smaller dogs consume less of that food. And even though they're smaller, they don't eat as much of it, but it doesn't affect them. It takes a longer time to affect them because they're eating less of it.
Definitely true that the bigger dogs have shorter lifespans.
Yeah, and that could just be a breed thing. And of course, but again, it's just a total assumption. But okay, well, if big dogs ate food that we eat, can they live longer? Can they live that 15, 20 years like the smaller breeds typically do? And we'll find out.
We will find out. Yeah. Well, David, would you give that website so people can check out Chowdy's and have their doggies and kitties try the treat themselves?
Yeah, it's just chowdees.com, chowdees.com.
Thank you so much, David. You take care now. Have a great week.
All right, Patty, you too.
Bye.
See you next week.
Thank you. Bye.